Welcome back to the Travel Podcast by ExcursionPass.
Yeah.
I mean, usually when you think about time travel, right, you imagine some glowing futuristic machine with blinking lights and a dramatic countdown.
Oh, totally. Like some sleek, high-tech capsule that just kind of seamlessly zaps you into another century without, a single hair out of place.
Yeah, exactly. But the reality of stepping back 400 years actually looks a lot more like standing on a slightly chilly sidewalk in modern-day Boston. You're clutching a paper cup of coffee, and you're just anxiously scanning the morning traffic for a very specific minibus.
Right, because one minute you're dodging these stressed-out commuters, and the next you are literally trying to fathom surviving a transatlantic voyage in 1620.
It is a wild transition. And that jarring physical leap from modern chaos to colonial survival is exactly what we are dissecting today in this deep dive. We're looking at the day tour of Pilgrim, Plymouth and Cape Cod from Boston.
Operated by Great Boston Tours, and honestly, we're super excited because, we've lived this experience. We've been in that van, we've walked those streets, and we're basically going to act as your expert tour guides for the tour guide today.
Yeah, we're here to share every vivid detail.
Yeah.
Because we know you, right? We know exactly what you're doing right now. You're staring at that ExcursionPass listing, you're looking at the 9-hour duration, and you are definitely eyeing that $179 adult price tag.
Oh, for sure. Or $129 if you're bringing the kids.
Right. And you're mentally drafting your objections. You're sitting there wondering, is this just going to be a massive, impersonal, 9-hour history lecture while I am completely trapped on a moving bus?
Basically, is it really worth blowing an entire vacation day on this? Which, by the way, is a completely fair hesitation to have before you commit your precious time and your budget to just one single itinerary.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to pull back the curtain. We are going to explore the, let's call them eccentricities of your guide, walk you through the coastal stops, and lay out the brutal truths from actual customer reviews.
Because we want you to feel like you're already in the passenger seat with us. We'll give you the inside scoop so you can decide if this 1600s time travel experience is actually the right fit for you.
Okay, let's unpack this. And, let's start with the literal unpacking of the morning, because before you can even think about the Mayflower, you have to navigate the logistics of escaping modern Boston.
Which is surprisingly tight, honestly. They don't just tell 50 people to meet at one mega terminal outside the city. The logistics here are more of an urban sweep.
Yeah, between 8:00 and 8:50 a.m., the tour hits 4 major downtown hubs. So you've got the New England Aquarium at 8:05, the State Transportation Building around 8:25, the Fairmont Copley Plaza at 8:35, and finally the Sheraton and Hilton area at 8:50.
And that actually brings us to the first major sigh of relief for anyone who, just hates the feeling of being herded like cattle on vacation.
Oh my gosh, yes. The worst.
Right. You are not getting onto a 50-person coach bus with a blurry microphone system. This operation strictly caps out at 14 travelers.
14-passenger minibus.
Yeah.
But I have to say, that small size creates its own set of urban camouflage issues. Which actually brings me to a hilarious but highly cautionary anecdote from the reviews. We have to talk about Dana from Montana.
Oh, wow. The unmarked van incident. I love this one.
It's so good. Okay, so Dana and their group are waiting on the curb in Boston at their designated time, probably feeling a little bit lost and anxious. And this plain, completely unmarked white van pulls up to the curb.
Right.
So Dana, assuming this is their historical chariot to Plymouth, walks right up to the window and just flat out asks the driver if they're the tour guide.
Which, is a very reasonable assumption in most tourist cities.
But not in Boston. The random Bostonian driver immediately loses his temper, tells Dana to basically back off and stay away from the vehicle, and then inexplicably gets into a screaming match with a completely different pedestrian on the street.
Wow. A truly authentic, immersive Boston morning welcome. You get the local flavor before you even see any history.
Exactly. So please, for your own sanity, do not approach random white vans in New England. You must look specifically for the minibus with the Great Boston Tours logo printed on the side.
Good tip. Very good tip.
But joking aside, I do want to push back on the vehicle situation for a second. We saw a reviewer from Texas who complained that the seats were a bit cramped and uncomfortable. For $179, shouldn't I be riding in some sort of sprawling luxury?
You would think so, yeah, but the smaller vehicle is actually a deliberate architectural necessity, not them just being cheap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a massive luxury coach, physically and legally cannot navigate the narrow, winding 18th century coastal roads you'll be traveling on. They also can't pull into the super tight parking lots of these historic sites.
That makes sense.
So you are making a trade-off. You're trading sprawling legroom for VIP, front row access to places that the big crowds simply cannot reach.
Okay, fair enough. So you've safely identified the correct van, you haven't hijacked a local's commute, and you're squished in. You look up to the front seat, and the person steering this ship for the next 9 hours is Richard, affectionately known universally to his passengers as Coach.
And Coach isn't just an employee pulling a shift to pay the bills. He's the owner of Great Boston Tours, a deeply rooted local, and most crucially for the vibe of this entire day, he is a former history teacher.
Oh, and that background entirely dictates the rhythm of the excursion. He doesn't just press play on some pre-recorded audio track while navigating traffic. Reviewers are constantly talking about the sheer volume of facts he delivers live.
It's intense.
It is. One traveler actually claimed they learned more in this single day than they retained from their entire high school education.
Because he basically operates the van as a mobile classroom. He's weaving this continuous, super detailed narrative about economics, survival, and colonial politics as the landscape is passing by.
But wait, let's pause there. I'm on vacation,
Yeah.
right? I might be jet lagged. I might have had a late dinner and some drinks the night before. What if I just want to stare out the window at the ocean and zone out for an hour?
Well, then you might find yourself aligning with a particular reviewer who found the experience basically agonizing. They explicitly stated that Coach droned on in a monotone voice and found the relentless barrage of facts completely boring.
Wow.
Yeah, Coach is incredibly polarizing.
To put it mildly, because while a school group from Missouri completely praised his witty banter and how he effortlessly engaged the kids, he definitely brings a very strict, almost homeroom energy to the adults.
Oh, for sure.
We're talking about a guy who literally gives the van a pop quiz at the end of the day.
A literal pop quiz. And the behavioral expectations are very real, too. Another reviewer mentioned an adult in their group wandered off slightly from the pack to take a solo selfie.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Coach paused the entire tour, made a sarcastic remark, and refused to speak another word until the wanderer scurried back to the group.
He put an adult in timeout. That is wild. It really forces you to ask yourself what kind of traveler you are. Like, if you want to lean in, engage, and absorb an absolute masterclass, this is going to be your jam.
Right.
But if you want a passive, anonymous hop-on, hop-off vibe where you can just chill, this is going to feel like a very, very long day in summer school.
Definitely. And it's funny, we call his style a shock to the system because physically, the itinerary is actually designed to do the exact opposite. It uses the landscape as this sort of historical decompression chamber.
I love that phrase, decompression chamber.
Yeah, because you don't jump straight from modern Boston traffic into the 1620s. You actually head south and hit the spectacular Cape Cod Canal first.
Right, and then the Sandwich Boardwalk, which overlooks this massive sweeping salt marsh. You step out of the van, you stretch your legs, you smell that brisk, salty New England air rolling off the water, and you're suddenly transported into the 1800s.
Specifically, you're in the quaint town of Sandwich, where the tour includes admission to the Dexter Gristmill, well, depending on the season, of course, and the Sandwich Glass Museum.
I have to admit, the idea of walking through a glass museum with a tight group of 14 people sounds like a recipe for a very expensive domino effect. Like, keep your backpacks tight, people.
Seriously, one wrong turn and crash.
But why Sandwich? Like, why not just drive straight down to the Pilgrims and get to the main event?
Well, Sandwich represents the coastal industrial boom that kind of bridged the gap between early survival and modern commerce. It wasn't just a pretty seaside town, it was a total industrial powerhouse.
Really?
Yeah, they were harvesting local sand and using the abundant New England timber to fire these massive furnaces.
And the mechanics of it are just fascinating. They weren't just blowing delicate glass one piece at a time. They were pressing molten glass into these heavy molds. And that technological leap is what suddenly made ornate glassware affordable for everyday Americans, not just the super wealthy elite.
Exactly. So it grounds you in that early American industrial spirit. You get this really tangible sense of how the country was building its economic legs before you dive into the much heavier, more desperate origins waiting for you in Plymouth.
And just as a quick scenic aside for everyone listening, if you happen to book this tour between late September and November, that drive down to Sandwich transforms into a breathtaking showcase of peak New England fall foliage.
Oh, it is
The
stunning.
vibrant reds and oranges set against the green and brown of the salt marsh. Honestly, it is worth a trip alone. Just beautiful.
But eventually, the 19th century fades away, and Coach drives you further back in time to the main event, 1620, Plymouth.
Yeah. You've got the towering national monument to the forefathers, Leyden Street Pilgrim Memorial State Park, and, of course, admission to the Mayflower II replica.
Which is where things get very real.
This is where the reality of history really slaps you in the face. I always try to find the right metaphor for the Mayflower II, and the best way to describe it is that it is essentially a wooden space capsule.
Oh, that perfectly captures the absolute isolation of it.
Let's break down that capsule to really understand the mechanics of the journey. You have 102 passengers crammed into a tween deck with less than 5 feet of headroom.
I can't even imagine.
They are effectively trapped in the damp dark for 66 days. They are surviving on salted beef and rock-hard biscuits, completely isolated from the rest of humanity, pitching violently in the freezing Atlantic swells.
Just stepping onto that replica and feeling the physical claustrophobia instantly dispels any romanticized textbook version of the crossing. You really feel it in your bones.
We actually read about a traveler whose daughter joined her on this tour. She had 5 direct ancestors on the original Mayflower.
Oh, wow. 5.
5. So for her, walking the exact path where Mary Chilton supposedly became the first European female to step onto the shore, it wasn't just sightseeing, it was a profound personal pilgrimage.
Which is incredible. But that also makes the logistics of this stop slightly complicated. Because while you are absorbing all this heavy emotional history, your stomach is probably aggressively growling.
Oh, absolutely. Which brings me to a major gripe I know a lot of people have. I paid $179 for this ticket. Are you telling me that doesn't include a sandwich? That feels like a massive oversight for a 9-hour tour.
It does seem steep at first glance to not include a meal, I agree, but it's actually a logistical necessity when you really look at it. Trying to wrangle 14 different dietary preferences and get everyone to agree on one single restaurant would easily eat up 2 hours of your daylight.
Okay, yeah, fair point. When you put it like that, it makes sense. So your coach just drops the group along the Plymouth waterfront, giving you free time to scatter and hit the inexpensive local seafood joints.
Exactly.
You can grab a quick clam chowder or a lobster roll on your own time, recharge, and get ready for the town's most famous, and perhaps most misunderstood, landmark.
Plymouth Rock. Let's just be completely honest about the visual experience here. If you walk up to it cold, without any guide or context, it is incredibly underwhelming.
It really is. It's just a surprisingly small piece of granite sitting in this sandy pit under a fancy portico. You almost walk right past it.
But this is precisely where Coach's contextual scaffolding completely justifies the price of the tour. He doesn't just point at the rock and read a plaque. He explains the bizarre mechanics of why it's so small today.
It's hilarious, actually.
Right. It's only about a third of its original size because 19th century souvenir hunters kept literally chipping pieces off with hammers to take home in their pockets.
They were just taking chunks of history. And he also breaks down the chaotic history of trying to move it. Because back in 1774, the townspeople tried to drag this 20,000-pound boulder to the town square to symbolize liberty, and they accidentally snapped it cleanly in half.
By giving you that lore, the physical mishaps, the centuries of evolving symbolism, Coach transforms what feels like a disappointing tourist trap into a deeply dynamic story.
Yeah, you understand the rock not as a geological wonder, but as an endurance test of a national myth. It makes all the difference.
It really does.
Okay, so we've painted a beautiful picture of the history, the glassmaking, the survival. But as your trusted travel guides, we have to transition from the 1600s back to the modern reality of booking a small business tour. Because there are some serious logistical red flags in the fine print that you absolutely need to know.
The parameters of this excursion are strict. The tour requires good weather to operate safely. It has a minimum traveler requirement, and due to the physical nature of the minibus and the historic sites, it is not wheelchair accessible.
And then there's the cancellation policy. It is rigid. If you cancel up to 24 hours in advance, you get a 100% refund, great. But if you cancel within that 24-hour window, 0 refund.
But honestly, the most alarming feedback we found in the reviews wasn't about the strict cancellation policy. It was about travelers being completely stood up.
Yes. A reviewer named Diana detailed a literal nightmare scenario. Her family was standing outside their hotel at the designated time, totally ready to go, and the van just never showed.
Oh, no.
They received no text, No WhatsApp message, no email warning. Just a total ghosting.
So what did they do?
They had to call the company from the sidewalk, only to discover the tour was canceled, and then they spent weeks fighting to get their $400 refunded.
That is an absolute vacation ruiner.
It really is. How does that even happen in the age of automated booking systems? It feels crazy.
Well, you have to remember the scale of Great Boston Tours. This is not a massive faceless corporation with a 24/7 call center in another country. It is an owner-operated small business.
Right.
Coach is driving, he's lecturing, and he's managing the back end all at the same time. Administrative details like a sudden weather cancellation or missing the minimum passenger count they can and do slip through the cracks of a one-man show.
That's true. So, knowing that, how do our listeners protect their time and their money? Because nobody wants to be left on a curb.
You must be unapologetically proactive. Do not rely solely on an automated confirmation email. The afternoon before your scheduled tour, you need to pick up the phone and call the operator directly.
Let me give you that number. Write this down. So 1-855-275-071.
Perfect. Verbally confirm that the tour is running, ensure they have your name on the manifest, and absolutely double-check your exact pickup location.
And the next morning, be standing at that spot 10 minutes early. Do not give them any excuse to roll past you, and make sure they know you are coming.
Yeah, you just have to manage the logistics a bit more tightly than you might with a massive tour conglomerate.
So let's pull all of this together and summarize what this day really is. Because for $179, you are not just paying for a ride down to Cape Cod and Plymouth.
If you just wanted a lift to the coast, you could rent a car or take a regional bus for a fraction of the cost.
Right. What you are actually investing in is a 9-hour masterclass. It is an intimate, sometimes cramped, occasionally quirky dive into the foundations of Massachusetts.
And if you are a traveler who craves context, who enjoys historical trivia, and who values front-row access over sprawling luxury, this itinerary is meticulously designed for you. You're going to love it.
But if you're looking to nap, or if you prefer a passive experience where you can kind of just drift in and out of the history, keep your money. Coach's Classroom is not for the faint of heart, and he definitely won't let you sleep through it.
Which actually brings us to a final thought for you to chew on as you map out your future travels. Think about how completely a destination is shaped by the person interpreting it for you.
Yeah, like standing over Plymouth Rock.
Exactly. You aren't just seeing a stone. You are seeing it through the highly specific lens of a former teacher who cares so deeply about the subject that he might quiz you on it later. It changes the physical space.
It totally does.
It makes you wonder, when we travel, how much does the storyteller matter more than the historical site itself? Does the guide actually create the history for us in that moment?
Are we visiting the rock, or are we visiting the story of the rock? That is exactly the kind of provocative question we want you to take with you on your next adventure. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive on the travel podcast by ExcursionPass. We really hope it helps you make the best choice for your itinerary.
Safe travels, everyone. Remember to confirm your pickup times and keep asking great questions.
Keep exploring, everyone. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.